Join me as we investigate Sonnet 10, On Repair Should Be Thy Chief Desire, speaking of the Jewish Kabbalistic doctrine of Tikkun Olam, or healing the world of chaos. To the Jewish people, it's often understood as their role in social justice, equality, and ridding the world of suffering from evil, such as what Hamas have done in Gaza to Israel and people across many nations, including Palestinians. We have traditionally taught this sonnet is something more harsher, accusing the man of murder for not wanting to bear a child, being incapable of affection. Having discovered the source documents used by the poet, I'll reveal what it really means. Welcome to this lecture. I'm Peter Matthews. My guest is again Luke Ranieri, reading in OP. Take it away, Luke.
For shame, to know that thou burst loved Annie, who for thee suffered so unprovident. Grant, if thou wilt, thou art beloved of many, but that thou none lovest is most evident. For thou art so possessed with murderous hate that 'gainst thyself thou stick'st not to conspire, seeking a beauteous roof to ruinate, which to repair should be the chief desire. O change thee thought, that I may change me mind. Shall hate be fairer lodge than gentle love? Be as the present says gracious and kind, or to thee self at least kind-hearted prove. Make thee another self, for love of me, that beauty still may live in thine day.
In Sonnet 10, we begin by investigating Genesis 1:24, where God said, "Let the earth produce," and in the Hebrew, nefesh hayim, or living creatures, each producing offspring of the same kind. The source passage for the sonnets, and in this case for Sonnet 10, opens from Zohar Hadash 10a. The two primary source documents, as I've spoken previously, are Zohar Hadash and the Zohar of Mantua. And of course, there's 200 odd there's 200 odd source documents besides this. So we open from Zohar Hadash 10a, and the number 10 for Sonnet 10 is the Hebrew letter Yod, relating to the Sephira of Malkut, or the kingdom, speaking of the Davidic kingly dynasty, the Torah, the 10 Commandments, the 10 utterances of creation, the archangel Sandalphon, and Shekinah. It speaks of the bride of Christ, the earth, us here on earth, and our connection to the Blessed Holy One. According to Zohar Hadash 10b, when the Blessed Holy One foresaw Israel and what she would become with Torah, he made from his throne all the souls predestined to live on the earth, and called it the body of souls, sometimes identified as the well of souls, or, as most people know it, the Holy of Holies. Yes, you heard me correctly. When we depart this world, if we have fulfilled Torah, we go to a storehouse called the treasures of eternal life. Now, this is also called Avarot, or the 7 heavens. These are the 2 storehouses for Israel. So Zohar of Mantua tells us. For when the Lord God, speaking of Elohim Yud-He Vav-He, breathed the breath of life into man's nostrils, and the man became a living person, Genesis 2:7. Now, he merely cited them as a secret code in Salve, as follows: I deliver the inestimable treasure of all elected souls to be perused at convenient times. We also know the Son of Man, referring to the Messiah, will not return until the body of souls that is predestined to live is empty. So all the souls that are ever going to come into this world have come. That is when the Messiah comes. There is a debate in Zohar Dash, Midrash Hanilim 10c, over whether unbelieving non-Jewish nations possess a neshma. It's a portion of the soul, essentially where God breathed life into them. Now, yes, this was a debate by the ancient rabbis that Emilia has etched into the Sonnets for us to understand today. Emilia also understood Plato's idea that our psyche comes from three souls: the rationale or thinking soul that exhibits wisdom, the spiritual or willing soul that exhibits courage, and the appetitive or feeling soul that moderates the successive action of a person. Now, the Bassano's family did not follow this belief. Instead, it was mocked in Act 2, Scene 3 of Twelfth Night. See, why do I say the Bassano family? Because many of the plays were written by the Bassano family. Many of them contain the Bassano family members, and I've discussed this already in earlier sonnets. And when we're dealing here with Act 2, Scene 3 of Twelfth Night, and it says, "Shall we rouse the night owl in a catch that will draw three souls out of the weaver?" "Sir," Andrew replied, "and you love me, let's do it. I am dog at a catch." Basically to depict the dog nature of an animal soul. You see, the Bassanos embraced the Jewish Kabbalistic theology of all five levels of the soul, and they are the Nefesh, the Ruah, Neshma, Chea, and Yekida. And they exist in all human souls, although the Zohar Dash tries to tell us that only Jewish people have this. And Emilia certainly didn't believe this. And I'll get to this. And this all weaves into the beginning of the sonnets. If you bear with me in a moment, you'll understand where I'm going with this. The Sonnet 10 deals with the first three. Now, Nefesh is when a person is born. He is given a Nefesh from the world of Asiya. It is the lowest level of consciousness in the world of Asiya, or the world of action from which desires arise. And this is this side of the klipot, rather than the side of holiness. So this is the side where desires increase to cravings. The purpose is, of course, to choose Torah and mitzvah, if you're Jewish, that is. This could be compared to a leech in Proverbs 30, verse 15, that cries out, "Give, give, feed me blood." For it is written, "The leech has two daughters, give, give," they cry. And we'll get into that a little bit later in the sonnets, because it starts to unravel who these daughters are and what it really means. It's actually a beautiful imagery. And it gives a stern warning, particularly to men. In Zohar 1, 206a, Rabbi Judah Hanasi said, "All that has the neshama of the spirit of life in its nostrils, of all that was on dry land, died." What's this referring to? It's referring to Genesis 7:22 regarding Noah, or should I say in the time of Noah. He was actually talking about the men who walked with God, Jared and Enoch, the righteous men who could have saved the world from destruction. They died. Well, sort of. Nefesh refers to the King David, who poised to receive the river, the Ruah, presides over it, dwelling between the fire, which is in the sphere of Hesed, and the water, Gevurah, and the Neshama, the soul, is the source of both. Now, I know this is very deep, and I'll get to the understanding of this in a moment. Now it connects to the sonnet. But I have to lay a grounding so you can see where Emilia is trying to write to us from. In Zohar 10b, Rabbi Shimon unequivocally stated that only Israelites have the breath of life, a holy neshama. But we know that's not true because, well, Christians do, because John the Baptist said, I baptize you with water for repentance, but after me comes one who is more powerful than I, referring to the Messiah, whose sandals I am not worthy to carry. He will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and fire. Matthew 3:11. Now, to me, being Christian, that refers to Jesus of Nazareth, a Jewish rabbi. Baptism of the Holy Spirit and fire was given also to the Gentiles. It wasn't just given to the Jews. Zohar 11a takes this animal soul aspect one step further by asserting whoever has sex with lewd intention like animals, which is discussed in the Mishnah, then the child will be born licentious, promiscuous, wicked, and not be reckoned amongst the holy. And I'm only trying to tell you what the text is that opens up the sonnet to us. Conversely, those who sanctify themselves will have virtuous children, it says. However, in Zohar 11d, Rabbi Shimon explains, this was because there was nobody but Noah who was sufficient to shield his wives and his sons from wiping out their generation. This is what she's trying to teach us. The likes of Jared and Enoch had died and become angels already. Or if you believe that the text of Enoch, he didn't actually die, he was ascended. Now, after Enoch and Jared had left the world, judgment was executed upon the wicked. Now, this reference to the Mishnah is talking about Ezekiel 20, verse 38, and the Babylonian Talmud, Nedarim 20b, I think it is. It teaches that shame leads to the fear of sin. Shame leads to the fear of sin, speaking of the soul of Nefesh. So now you can understand when we continue our discussion from Sonnet 9, Emilia wrote the verse, for shame deny that thou bearest love to any who for thyself art so improvident. Basically to depict those who blush. Yes, blush. Because blushing is so easily seen by others giving off lewd intentions. And it serves to prevent a person from sinning. If you've been to now I don't frequent local pubs, but I've been to the odd nightclub when I was young, and I can remember a few of those things. The blushing of certain people, and you can look around the room and you can see it for yourselves. I'm sure you've seen those situations. The prophet Ezekiel tells us those with lewd intentions will be purged. For it is written, I will purge you of all those who rebel and revolt against me. I will bring them out of the countries where they are in exile, but they will never enter the land of Israel. Then you will know that I am the Lord. Ezekiel 20:38. The desire of God is for all to stand in awe of him, like Moses who shone on Mount Sinai. The poet prays to God in the verse, grant, if thou wilt, thou art beloved of many, but that thou none lovest is most evident. For we see the love of God extending his hand to progress, to ruah. But as men, we too often listen to the leech. The leech, yes. For thou art so possessed with murderous hate, the poet teaches. We force the hand of God once. A Reshit, from Bereshit. Second, Reshit. Shall he begin again? This is the essence of Kabbalah as taught by the Masonic family, where we are the creature, the animal soul, and the creator, Ein Sof, Elohim, precarnate Christ, has a will to bestow blessing, light, joy, pleasure upon us. The purpose of life is essentially to purify the body by following the path of light, or the tzaddik, the righteous, the just, to the extent that he or she returns to the level of an angel. That's what the Zohar teaches. Now we know the word Zohar means radiance, essentially like the seed of the fine purple silk wrapping itself within, weaving itself a palace. The soul is to ascend by performing mitzvot and keeping Torah, because for this command, speak of the mitzvah, is a lamp. This teaching is a light, and correction and instruction are the way to life. Proverbs 6:23. Now, you have to understand that Emilia was Jewish, but she did believe in Jesus as a Messiah, and she still practiced Judaism. Now, this isn't converting to Christianity. It is Messianic Judaism. Now, for those who are God-fearing and holy, it is written, "But I was the one who planted you," choosing Zera Emet, or a vine of the purest stock, the very best. Jeremiah 2:21. What is Emet? Emet. We'll delve into this further shortly. In Emilia's dedication to the Lady Elizabeth's grace, to that dear mother of our Commonwealth, Emilia was referring to Shekinah and the Sephira of Chokmah, whose goodly wisdom brings increase, potential, and beginning of first fruits of a woman's wit. Chokmah is a treasury of virtue and wisdom, to hear the word of the Lord as Emilia explains it in Salve Deus. For it is written, Shema Yisrael, which is Hear, O Israel, Deuteronomy 6:4. The Hebrew philosophical view of truth is different to the Greek, for they believe the seal of God is truth. From Genesis 2:3, that derives from the Hebrew words that I'll put up on the screen, translated as God has created and accomplished. Now, if we take the end letter from each Hebrew word, highlighted in red, we find the Hebrew word emet, meaning truth. And that is taken directly from Genesis 2:3. Quite incredible, the Hebrew language. Now, if we remove the aleph, which is the first word in emet, the aleph, we are left with the word met, and met means death. This is the very letters used in the Golem story of the Brothers Grimm after the famous Golem made by the Maharal of Prague. The great Spanish-German Kabbalist Rabbi Jacob ben Shalom said, "The law of destruction is nothing more than a reversal of the law of creation." In other words, when the golem is made, there are 3 letters across his forehead. When you wipe away the 1 letter, he is dead. Emilia left us a secret code in the word devour in her book Salve Deus Rex Judaeorum in reference to sin being a many-headed monster whose mortal sting hath many thousand slain. So what did she mean by that? Well, in Zohar 1.5a, Rabbi Shimon compares the man of perversity, which is referring to the soul of Nefesh, with a woman of whoredom. In other words, a prostitute. He begs his companions not to utter another word of Torah until they have heard it from a lofty tree, lest you enable sin to slay multitudes without just cause. So what is he talking about? He taught, you are imi, in the Hebrew, with me, becoming my partner. So just as the heavens, plural, were made, that's Psalm 33:6, with the words, let there be light, Genesis 1:3, and with the Torah, the Blessed Holy One created the world. So Zohar 1.5a states that the Blessed Holy One contemplated Torah 4 times while introducing these 4 words. Bereshit bara Elohim et. Conversely, Zohar 1.5a tells us an interesting tale about those who use the words of Torah without the proper understanding from a lofty tree. So now we'll get to the understanding of it, which is essentially a reliable expert, a deep-rooted, sturdy tree by the waters. Now, if you want to look into it, it's Psalm 104, verse 16. Now, if you use the words of Torah without proper understanding, you may kill thousands in a single moment by our iniquity or sin. Ponder that for a moment. That is why there are a lot of words that are spoken that should not be spoken. I won't say any more than that. Psalm 133:1 tells us that how wonderful and pleasant it is when brothers live together in harmony. And in Mark 3:25 tells us that if a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand. Just as the story in the Zohar is speaking of the backbiting that leads to murderous hate. The poet then decided instead, repair should be thy chief desire, which speaks of the Kabbalistic doctrine of Tikkun Olam that is subtly weaved throughout the Shakespearean works and Emilia Bassano's 1611 Jewish Kabbalistic book of poetry titled Salve Deus Rex Judaeorum, or Hail God, King of the Jews. Yes, as I discussed earlier in the Sonnets, it is the key to unlock the Sonnets. As I explained in my earlier book on Genesis of the Shakespearean works, to the Jewish Kabbalist, redemption is primarily spiritual, and each one is responsible for mending bad souls in the process of Tikkun Olam and Gilgulam. And Gilgulam is reincarnation. It is a matter of healing or mending these souls in the current life, which is Tikkun, or the life thereafter, Gilgulam. In other words, you go around again and again and again until you get it right, or you stand in judgment in the end of days. It is essentially mending the disharmony of the world and reconnecting the Jews with the infinite. What's the infinite? Ein Sof, or God. The doctrine of Tikkun Olam challenges us to break out of the husk, just like the silkworm, and begin the repair of the world through prayers and acts of random loving kindness, leaving our own mark upon the world, rising to righteousness. For Emilia, it was following her father's footsteps by writing a commentary of her ancestors' treasure, the Zohar of Antiquity. She begs Londoners to, "O change thy thought, that I may change my mind," hoping they would repent and turn towards God and Torah. She ponders, "Shall hate be fairer lodged than gentle love?" Almost residing to the fact that they would rather choose hate. I believe the verse, "as be as thy presence is gracious and kind," is speaking of Shekinah being gracious and kind towards us. As the Zohar teaches, "You are my imi," or with me, becoming my partner. How are we becoming a partner? Well, the last 3 verses in the Sonnets are quite incredible, because they teach us and lead us into a beautiful verse of the Bible, which is known amongst Kabbalists as the 72 hidden names of God, or the 72 Shem Hampharash. What a word! Which are said to have been called upon by Moses in crossing the Sea of Reeds in Exodus 14, 19 to 21, that I'll put up on the screen in Hebrew. And these are the 72 hidden names of God. Now, what that reads in English is, "Then the angel of God, who had been leading the people of Israel, moved to the rear of the camp. The pillar of the cloud also moved from the front and stood behind them. The cloud settled between the Egyptian and Israelite camps. As darkness fell, the cloud turned to fire, lighting up the night. But the Egyptians and the Israelites did not approach each other all night. Then Moses raised his hand over the sea, and the Lord opened up a path through the waters with a strong east wind. The wind blew all that night, turning the seabed into dry land." It's a beautiful passage, isn't it? Now, these 72 names are taken from triads of Hebrew characters in the Hebrew text, and they are rearranged and they form a different manner. And I spoke about it earlier in Sonnet 9, that form if you like, they use it as basically an incantation, but it's not magic as such. It's just the spoken word, like the utterance of creation. I mentioned that it comes from Zohar 252a. Now, it's a commanding verse for angels. Each of the angels have a commanding verse from the Psalms that dispatch angels to our assistance, as was the case in Moses. And we know the Bassano family invoked 3 angels, Eliel, Melel, and Michael, in a church in Derbyshire by effectively clearing out demons that bound the church religion, changing the destiny of the church, because Eliel is the angel of the future. invoking angelic protection over the church, and in doing so calling upon Michael, which is the guardian of Jacob, conqueror of Satan, to root out evil conspirators within the church according to church history. And yes, this was written down exactly what happened in Derbyshire, and they had a revival. So that's what happened. They used basically, you can call it incantation if you like, but it's a commanding of angels, commanding the power of God. Because we tend to forget the Israelites did the same thing. Thus we know this sonnet was penned by members of the Bassano family because make thee another self for love of me speaks of making another self of God. For Elohim fashioned us in his likeness, but also reciprocating by God's love for his people, by his 72 angels of God, and to love and protect creation. See, that's what these 72 angels are for protecting creation. In context to the source documents, I believe thyself, at least kind hatred prove, also refers to the Ruach HaKodesh, because it's talking about kindness. That beauty still may live in thine or thee, the indwelling manifest presence of Shekinah, who can live on in us and become the partner of Christ. Or if we can rise to the soul of Enoch, then maybe one day that beauty will be reflected in us as angels serving the throne. The poet is calling us, all of us, to wake up. For those wanting to do further reading, read the prologue of the Zohar, chapter 10, to understand the enormity of souls and their connection to the Messiah. This is something special for students desiring wisdom and understanding. Sonnet 11 is on the coming judgment and the masters of Torah. Don't miss it, it's going to be a good one. Thanks for watching, and bless you heaps.